Hello. Hello. Happy Friday. February 24th, 2023. 7 o'clock p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Or is it daylight time? Not Standard Time, I think. There. Now I've run down as specific a date as we need, I think. What is new, friends? We had another house showing today, but it was a family who had been here before, so that's a good sign, in theory. Benedict played with other dogs at the park today. There were these two bigger dogs, a Dalmatian and some kind of chocolate lab or something. Yeah, that were wrestling with each other, and Benedict doesn't really like it when other dogs play fight. I think he thinks they're actually fighting, so he tries to break it up. He tries to get in the middle and he barks at them and he tries to get them to stop what they're doing, but of course he's only little, so they don't always pay attention. And then he runs circles around them to... Yeah, I don't know if he knows where he wants to herd them to, but he wants to herd them. I don't know if he fully understands that, the point of herding is to take something somewhere. I don't know if he gets the destination part. What do you think, Ben? I'm a bit sleepy today. What else is new? Stop all the fighting. Hey, hey. The lady at the park said you were the fun police. Or maybe the no fun police. Which Kinston? That one? That hand? You're right! I didn't fool you. So clever. You saw where I went. What if I do this? Look, look. See my finger? Wow! He just wants more treats. He thinks there's more treats in there. He's not paying attention to... Oh, 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 oh. You're a cute puppin. A cute puppin. He's a cute puppin. Who wants snacks? Oh. Ben, you literally saw that there was nothing in there. Look, empty hands. Just because I close them doesn't make snacks materialize. Closed hand. Must have treats. Must have treats in hand. Yeah, I guess so. Usually he sees the treats go into the hand, though. Okay, look. That's a treat. That's a treat. I'm going to put it in one of my hands. Which hand is it in? Which hand is it in? Is it that one? Are you sure? Are you sure? Oh, is it this one? Which hand? Oh, you think it's that one. You are wrong! It was this one! Let's try again. Which hand's it in? Which one? That one? You can't touch both. You gotta pick one. This hand? That time it was that hand! He claws the heck out of my hands in the process. Ah. 7:06. Where are the Sharkies at? Sharkies, where are you? Are you in there? Who did? Benedict? You're not Sharkies. Well. We gotta be getting close to the end of this book. So, oh yeah, we are getting close to the end. We've only got 9 pages left. Interesting. I don't know if that's 1 chapter or 2. Just 1. We just got tonight's chapter to read. Or wait, no, there's 2. Did I see another chapter? Wait a minute. Huh? No, yeah, just the one. Just the one. Why don't you read tonight's chapter, Ben? You want to read a book? You want to read a book? You want this? I don't think he's interested. I'm sorry. It's okay. You don't have to. I got this. So, I think we read half of chapter 26 on Wednesday, because I think we're already halfway through it when we started. Yeah. We had, I think, yeah, Murgo assassins. We had Olban being a little bit reckless in his defense of Princess Sinedra, probably due to some past guilt. We met Sir Andorig again, and King Corodulin. And then Princess Sinedra gave a speech to the Mimbrates. And then after that, she was plotting some kind of idea on how to go about appealing to the Tolnedrans, which somehow involved what is it? They call it, yeah, Angarak gold. I was going to say Murgo gold, but the Angarak gold. That's roughly where we're at. That's where we're at, pup. We're on chapter 27. Oh, and of course, Polgara had a little bit of a phone call with Belgarath. A amulet call, I guess. Yeah, that's an Adra eavesdropped on, got called out on. Barum. Well, I don't really know if that I should get started just yet. Do you want to poke the sharkies? Digitally? Through the power of the internets? I wonder when it's going to start snowing. What does the forecast say about that? It is apparently currently -2 degrees outside. And oh, it doesn't say. For me, it says it's gonna probably start snowing around 11 a.m. tomorrow. 11 a.m. or noon. And then almost certainly by like 2 or 3. Is what the current forecast says. But it should be clear until the morning. We were just about the message. You think we're about to get one from them? Is that prescience? Or is it that one of them is typing? Hopefully everything's okay. What do you think, Ben? Just looking at some of the books on the shelf there, and I don't remember where that Dracopedia came from. I don't think that's a D&D book, is it? Was that a... Did you get that as a present at some point? A Guide to Drawing the Dragons of the World. I don't remember... It's got just a map of Earth on the inside cover, sort of silhouette-like. William has produced over 3,000 images for publication for such companies as Wizards of the Coast, Blizzard Entertainment, Lucasfilms, HarperCollins, Doubleday, and many more. Oh. Dragons. Oh. Amphitheater. Doesn't look like it's got legs. It's neat. Doesn't look like we get it in Canada. Or maybe just on like the very southern border, but You're going to be late. Mr. Sharky just got back from work and Christine had been out helping. I mean, Mrs. Sharky. Got some like wingspan variations. Behavior, history. It's interesting. And then how to draw. Oh, apparently Arctic Dragon is quite fuzzy. I had trouble finding its face at first. Cloud Dragon. Nimibiacidus nebulus. That one's habitat is in Canada. Arctic, northern alpine areas, and polar regions. Also known as polar dragon, snow serpent, ice dragon, frost drake, and temple dog. Huh. Well, there's the temple dog look for sure. Puppy dragon. They say Killin, the Killin for this, K-I-L-I-N, but I'm used to seeing it as Kirin. It does say Chinese dragon down here. Although, also I'm used to it having like it's kind of got a backwards, like a horn going back here, but... Oh, and they have it as like a subgenus of the Arctic dragon. Oh. Look at that guy. A pretty good dragon. Beard. What? This one's just listed as Asian dragon, which is not the look I would have expected. Leffa. Imagining new dragons is a challenge since so many illustrations have been done throughout history. Try not to copy drawings you have already seen. Instead, develop your own creature using the dragons in this book as an example. There are many real-life animals that live in habitats similar to the Asian dragon and have similar behaviors, so research them when designing a dragon of your own. I like how it says, try not to copy drawings, but then that's like the entire purpose of this book. But then, instead, develop your own creature using the dragons in this book as an example. Don't copy them. Use them as an example. Basilisk. Of course, the basilisk, among some other places, does inhabit Australia. Because of course it does. Oh. Doing a big yawn. Oh, lots of legs. 8 legs. Yawny basilisk. The basilisk is a member of the Pteradracia order, or flightless dragons, a multi-limbed reptilian beast of about 10 feet that's famous for its ability to petrify anyone who gazes into its eyes. This magical power has been much dramatized in literature and mythology over the centuries, but actually, it is not the animal's gaze that petrifies, nor is there any magic involved. Oh. The basilisk is able to shoot a jet of neurotoxin from a gland in the corner of its eyes, not unlike the horned toad of North America. This toxin has the ability to paralyze the basilisk's prey, rendering it defenseless. So, are you writing a book about dragons, but because they're on Earth, you don't want magic to exist? Like, yeah, dragons are real, but magic? No, it's a neurotoxin, silly. It's a warning road sign. Like, careful, there's basilisks in the area. From the American Southwest. Oh, a Cotitl, which it looks like is pretty much in Aztec and Egypt. rainbow feathery serpent. Draco Quetzalcoatlidae. Long believed to be a purely mythological creature, the, unlike everything else in the book, the coathill is revered as a holy animal to the native people of its habitats. The Egyptian coathill, or serpent, also lives in and around the ancient ruins of Giza. Holding him's nose. Oh, and the phoenix is apparently a coathill. Makes its habitat in the monuments and temples of Persia and Mesopotamia. Oh, and then we have dragon. This one's just dragon. Another big yawn. Where do we get dragon? Not a lot of habitat. Just a few. A few coastal places. Habitat is temperate to subtropical climate, maritime locales, also known as great dragons, true dragons. 25 meters to 31 meter. The dragon is by far the most feared and fearsome famous creature in the history of the world, even though it is one of the rarest, second only to the coathill. See page 54. With 31-meter wingspans and the ability to breathe fire. Can't wait for the scientific explanation of that. I'm guessing what gases and some kind of spark or stones or something, I don't know. It is the largest and most powerful terrestrial animal that has ever lived. The dragons come in a wide variety of species and range all over the world, from the rocky shores of the Pacific Northwest to the Mediterranean Sea. Revered by every culture and in every region. Why are they revered by every culture if there's so few of them in just such a small amount of coastal locations? Today, there are few surviving specimens. The bright colors of each species are more pronounced in the males than the females. Rarity equals special. Yeah, but if they're that rare, how do people, how does every culture even know about them? Although there are many species of the dragon, the most famous is the Welsh red dragon. Well, yeah, it's on the flag. Consisting of a large quadrupedal body, a long tail, a serpentine neck, scaled armor, surmounted by massive bat-like leather wings, highly intelligent, and able to breathe fire, although this time it didn't put breathe in quotation marks. The dragon is the most enigmatic and fascinating creature alive. Although dragons are unable to speak, alright, They have a long and revered relationship with the people of their territory. Great Welsh dragon is the big red one there. Nice little horn on his nose. Dragon. Bats are dragon puppies. Then on the other side there we have a great Norwegian blue dragon, a great Icelandic white dragon, and a great Chinese gold dragon. Oh, dragon skeleton. And it looks like musculature. Hollow bones, like those of a bird, are common to all dragon species. This reduces their weight by 30%, aiding in flight. It is believed that Leonardo da Vinci's extensive sketches of wing designs are based on those of the great dragon. Believed by who? Believed by William O'Connor? Dragons are highly territorial and antisocial, even to other dragons. We got an American Acadian green dragon here. Acadia National Park in Maine is now home to the nature preserve that protects the green dragon. Huh. It is believed that the ancient American Acadian green dragon, Mohawk, was alive before the American Revolution. They prefer high cliffs and rocky outcroppings, making their homes along tall palisades overlooking the sea. These lofty and remote vantage points allow for clear observation of their territory, safety from enemies, and the ability to take flight. The seaside also allows the dragon to feed from the ocean, snatching tuna, porpoises, and even small whales from the water, and then bring it back to its lair. Despite their massive size, dragons do not range very far from their lairs, and only move if the food near their lairs disappears, or if they are threatened by human encroachment. Human-dragon interaction is actually quite rare, since they do not usually share the same territory. The only natural enemies to the dragon are humans and wyverns. Interesting. It is separating wyverns. I suppose what wyverns are probably also in this book somewhere, and, you know, it's distinguishing wyverns from dragons. Once reaching adulthood, a dragon will leave its mother's lair and find its own nest. Here the male dragon will begin to prepare for a female. Collecting shiny objects to line the nest, the male dragon will attract a female using calls and fire displays. Once the eggs are laid, the male dragon will leave its lair. It hasn't talked about the fire breathing really yet. Can live in excess of 500 years. Oh. Also capable of hibernating for long periods of time. Waking a sleeping dragon is not recommended. Ah, here we go. Dragonfire. Of all the dragon species, only the Dracorexus family is able to, here it is again, breathe fire. The dragon's ability to breathe fire is actually a misnomer. More accurately, the dragon spits fire. Ah, it's a liquid. Dragons are able to secrete a highly volatile liquid in a gland behind the mandible. The dragon is able to spit this liquid up to 31 meters. Once in contact with oxygen, the liquid quickly oxidizes and bursts into flame. This attack is only possible about once a day, and usually as a last resort defense, allowing the dragon to escape a dangerous situation. Dragon depictions vary. The vast majority of people never had seen a dragon, And their renderings are based on secondhand accounts and hearsay. Unlike these ones. These ones are legit. Sharkies! Hello! We're looking at the Dracopedia. How was your dinner? I hope you weren't feeling too rushed on my account. Dragonette. Look at that rider. Look at that guy. Oh, he's got a little dragon too. He's got a bigger and a littler dragon. That mustache. How dapper. He is riding a British Spitfire Dragonette. Oh, and the little dragon has a backpack. It's got a little backpack. A little messenger dragon. Barbecue chicken. Very nice. Sometimes a little dry, but I don't know. Get some hot sauce on there. It's good. Haven't had one of those for a little while. Or that's where it keeps its shiny rocks. Well, it's 7:40. Should we attempt to get through a chapter? The chapter we're on, chapter 27, is about 9 pages long in my copy, which, they're slightly larger pages than normal. And it is the final chapter of this book. So, do we want to try and finish it up tonight? Because if so, I will jump right on into it. It's hard to, it's weird saying it's the final chapter of the book, but it's the final chapter of Castle of Wizardry. Oh, I just saw your message about your puppet. That is super cool looking. I love the lighting. That's awesome. Oh. So yeah, votes. Yes, should we? I feel like if we start the chapter, we should try to finish it, but, nothing set in stone. I'm not sure if Sharkies, if you've seen the forecast, but it's supposed to snow tomorrow morning. Or tomorrow around noon, maybe. Parmos, what's your vote? Should we start reading? Sharkies are on board. Okie dokie. And I'm just going to get right into it. We left off with eavesdropping on a phone call between Bulgara and Belgarath, and then Sinedra saying that she's going to need every scrap of Angrak gold in the entire army. Every single coin. Chapter 27. Ran Borune the 23rd, Emperor of Tolnedra, was livid with rage. Is that right? Livid with rage? I'm used to just seeing livid by itself. Was livid with rage. Yeah. Sinedra noticed, with a certain pang, that her father had aged considerably in the year that she had been absent, and she wished that their meeting might be more cordial than this one promised to be. It's kind of like saying angry with anger. The Emperor had drawn up his legions on the plains of northern Tolnedra, and they faced Sinedra's army as it emerged from the forest of Vordieu. The sun was warm, and the crimson standards of the legions, rising from what seemed a vast sea of brightly burnished steel, waved imposingly in the summer breeze. The massed legions had taken up positions along the crest of a line of low hills, and they looked down at Sinedra's sprawling army with the tactical advantage of terrain in their favor. Pretty adversarial start. King Rodar quietly pointed this out to the young queen as they dismounted to meet the Emperor. "We definitely don't want to provoke anything here," he advised her. "Try your best to be polite at least." "I know what I'm doing, Your Majesty," she replied airily, removing her helmet and carefully smoothing her hair. "Sinedra," Rodar said bluntly, taking her arm in a firm grasp, "you've been playing this on your veins since the first day we landed on the Hook of Erendia." Playing this on your veins. You've been playing this on your veins. I don't know if I've heard that expression before. "You don't know from 1 minute to the next what you're going to do. I most definitely do not propose to attack the Tolnedran legions uphill, so be civil to your father, or I'll take you over my knee and spank you. Do you understand me?" "Rodar," Sinedra gasped. "What a terrible thing to say!" "I mean every word," he told her. "You mind your manners, young lady." "Of course I will," she promised. She gave him a shy little girl look through fluttering eyelashes. "Do you still love me, Rodar?" she asked in a tiny voice. He gave her a helpless look, and then she patted his broad cheek. "Everything will be just fine then," she assured him. "Here comes my father." How do I do the Wallace... What's his name? Wallace... Shawn? It's Wallace Shawn, right? How do I do the Wallace Shawn voice again? Inconceivable. No, that was what I was trying to think of. But tiny dub. Cold pressed Latinum. I know what it sounds like, but I'm drawing a blank. I'll try it. "Sinedra!" Ran Borune demanded angrily, striding to meet them.
Just exactly what do you think you're doing?
Is that close enough? Lovely. Is it Wallace Shawn or is it Sean Wallace? It's Wallace Shawn, right? Wallace is his first name? Yeah. Almost made me spit out my water. I wonder if Jeebers is still alive at this point.
Just exactly what do you think you're doing?
The Emperor was dressed in gold-embossed armor, and Sinedra thought he looked rather silly in it. No hypocrisy at all. Just passing through, Father, she replied as inoffensively as possible. You've been well, I trust?
I was until you violated my borders. Where did you get the army?
It's got good and bad parts. I'm not perfect. Here and there, Father, she shrugged. We really ought to talk, you know. Someplace private?
I don't have anything to say to you,
The bald-headed little man declared.
I refuse to talk to you until you get this army off Tolnedran soil.
Oh, Father, she reprimanded him. Stop being so childish.
Childish?
The Emperor exploded.
Childish?
Her Majesty perhaps chose the wrong word, King Rodar interposed, giving Sinedra a hard look. As we all know, she tends at times to be a trifle undiplomatic.
What are you doing here, Rodar?
Ran Borune demanded. I don't know if I went this extreme with it the last time we saw him, but he also wasn't that worked up the last time. He looked around quickly at the other kings.
Why have the Alorns invaded Tolnedra?
We haven't invaded you, Ran Borune,
Anheg told him.
If we had, the smoke from your burning towns and villages would be rising behind us. You know how we make war.
What are you doing here, then?
King Chohag answered in a calm voice. As Her Majesty advised you, we are only passing through on our way to the east.
And exactly what do you plan to do in the east?
That's our business,
Anheg told him bluntly. Try to be civil, Lady Polgara said to the Cherek king. She turned to the Emperor. My father and I explained to you what was happening last summer, Ran Borune. Weren't you listening?
That was before you stole my daughter,
he retorted.
What have you done to her? She was difficult before, but now she's absolutely impossible.
Children grow up, Your Majesty, Polgara replied philosophically. The Queen's point was well taken, however. We do need to talk, preferably in private.
What queen are we talking about?
The Emperor asked bitingly.
I don't see any queen here.
Sinedra's eyes hardened. Father, she snapped, you know what's been happening. Now stop playing games and talk sense. This is very important.
Your Highness knows me well enough to know that I don't play games,
he told her in an icy tone. Your Majesty, she corrected him.
Your Highness,
he insisted. Your Majesty, she repeated, her voice going up an octave.
Your Highness!
he snarled from between clenched teeth. Do we really need to squabble like bad-tempered children right in front of the armies? Polgara asked calmly.
She's right, you know, Rodar said to Ran Borune. We're all beginning to look a bit foolish out here. We ought to try to maintain the fiction of dignity at least.
Stop hitting yourself. The Emperor glanced involuntarily over one shoulder at the glittering ranks of his legions, drawn up on the hilltops not far away.
Very well, he conceded grudgingly. But I want it clearly understood that the only thing we're going to talk about is your withdrawal from Tolnedran soil. If you'll follow me, we'll go to my pavilion.
Which stands right in the middle of your legions,
King Anheg added.
Forgive me, Ran Borune, but we're not that stupid. Why don't we go to my pavilion instead?
I'm no stupider than you are, Anheg,
the Emperor retorted.
If I may...
Oof, that was wrong. King Fulrak said mildly.
In the interests of expediency, might we not assume that this spot is more or less neutral?
I don't know what's going on with him. He turned to Brendig.
Colonel, would you be so good as to have a large tent erected here? At once, your majesty,
the sober-faced Brendig replied. King Rodar grinned.
As you can see, the legendary practicality of the Sendars is not a myth.
The Emperor looked a bit sour, but finally seemed to remember his manners.
I haven't seen you in a long time, Fulrak, he said. I hope Layla's well.
Everybody loves Layla.
She sends her regards,
the King of Sendaria replied politely.
You've got good sense, Fulrak,
the Emperor burst out.
Why have you lent yourself to this insane adventure?
I think that might be one of the things we ought to discuss in private, don't you? Polgara suggested smoothly.
How's the squabble over the succession going?
Rodar asked in the tone of a man making small talk.
It's still up in the air,
Ran Borune responded, also in a neutral manner.
The Honeths seem to be joining forces, though.
That's unfortunate, Rodar murmured. The Honeths have a bad reputation.
Under Colonel Brendig's direction, a squad of Sendarian soldiers were quickly erecting a large, bright-colored pavilion on the green turf not far away. Did you deal with Duke Cador, father? Sinedra inquired.
His Grace found his life burdensome,
Ran Borune replied with a short laugh.
Someone rather carelessly left some poison lying around in his prison cell, and he sampled it extensively. We gave him a splendid funeral.
Sinedra smiled. I'm so sorry I missed it.
The pavilion is ready now, King Fulrak told them. Shall we go inside?
They all entered and sat at the table the soldiers had placed inside. Lord Morin, the Emperor's chamberlain, held Sinedra's chair for her. Lord Morin, I remember him, but I don't remember his voice. I'm going to go with really old. How has he been? Sinedra whispered to the brown-mantled official.
Not well, Princess, Morin replied. Your absence grieved him more than he cared to admit.
Is he eating well and getting his rest?
We try, Highness, Morin shrugged. But your father's not the easiest person in the world to get along with.
Do you have his medicine?
Naturally, Highness. I never go anywhere without it. Suppose we get down to business, Rodar was saying. Tor Urgas has sealed his western border, and the southern Murgos have moved into position around Rakgoska. Zagath, the Malorian Emperor, has set up a staging area on the plains outside Thol Zelik to receive his troops as he ferries them in. We're running out of time, Ran Borune.
I'm negotiating with Tor Urgas,
the Emperor replied,
and I'll dispatch a plenipotentiary to Zagath immediately. I'm certain this can be settled without a war.
A plenipotentiary, which is basically an important person. A person in charge, basically. Pop-up pavilion. I can think of one other place specifically that I've seen the word plenipotentiary used, and that is in the game Suikoden 2. An important person who will get murdered.
I'm certain this can be settled without a war.
You can talk to Tor Urgas until your tongue falls out,
Anheg snorted.
And Zagath probably doesn't even know or care who you are. As soon as they've gathered their forces, they'll march. The war can't be avoided, and I, for one, am just as happy about that. Let's exterminate the Angarax once and for all.
Anheg suggests violence.
Isn't that just a bit uncivilized, Anheg?
Ran Borune asked him.
Your Imperial Majesty,
King Corodulin said formally.
The King of Cherak speaks hastily, perhaps, but there is wisdom in his words. Must we live forever under the threat of invasion from the east? Might it not be best forever to quell them?
All of this is very interesting, Sinedra interrupted them coolly, but it's really beside the point. The actual point at issue here is that the Revan King has returned, and Tolnedra is required by the provisions of the Accords of Vomimbre to submit to his leadership.
Perhaps,
her father replied.
But young Belgarian seems to be absent. Have you misplaced him somewhere? Or is it perhaps that he still had pots to scrub in the scullery at Riva, so that you had to leave him behind?
That's beneath you, father, Sinedra said scornfully. The Overlord of the West requires your service. Are you going to shame the Borunes and Tolnedra by abrogating the Accords? Ooh, abrogating. You had plenipotentiary and abrogating on the same page.
Oh, no, daughter,
he said, holding up one hand.
Tolnedra always meticulously observes every clause of every treaty she's ever signed. The Accords require me to submit to Belgarian, and I'll do precisely that, just as soon as he comes here and tells me what he wants.
I am acting in his stead, Sinedra announced.
I don't seem to recall anything that states that the authority is transferable.
I am the Revan Queen, Sinedra retorted hotly, and I've been invested with co-rulership by Belgarian himself.
The wedding must have been very private. I'm a little hurt that I wasn't invited.
The wedding will take place in due time, Father. In the meantime, I speak for Belgarian and for Riva.
Speak all you want, girl, he shrugged. I'm not obliged to listen, however. At the moment, you're only the betrothed of the Revan King. You are not his wife, and therefore not his queen. If we want to be strictly legal about it, until such time as you do marry, you're still under my authority. Perhaps if you apologize and get out of that stupid-looking armor and put on proper clothing, I'll forgive you. Otherwise, I'll be forced to punish you.
Punish? Punish?
Don't scream at me, Sinedra,
the Emperor said hotly. Oh, Barak is there.
Things seem to be deteriorating rapidly,
Barak observed dryly to Anheg.
I noticed that,
Anheg agreed.
I am the Revan Queen,
Sinedra shouted at her father.
You're a silly girl,
he shot back.
That does it, Father,
she declared, leaping to her feet. You will deliver command of your legions to me at once, and then you'll return to Tol Honeth, where your servants can wrap you in shawls and feed you gruel, since you're obviously too senile to be of any further use to me.
Senile?
The Emperor roared, also jumping up.
Get out of my sight! Take your stinking Alorn army out of Tolnedra at once, or I'll order my legions to throw you out!
Sinedra, however, was already storming toward the door of the tent.
You come back here,
he raged at her.
I haven't finished talking to you yet.
Yes, you have, Father, she shouted back. Now I'm going to talk. Barak, I need that sack you have tied to your saddle. She rushed from the tent and climbed onto her horse, spluttering with apparent fury.
Are you sure you know what you're doing?
Barak asked her as he tied the sack of Angarak coins to her saddle. Perfectly, she replied in a calm voice. Barak's eyes narrowed as he looked at her.
You seem to have regained your temper in a remarkably short time.
I never lost it, Barak.
You were acting in there?
Obviously. Well, at least partially. It'll take my father an hour or so to regain his composure, and by then it'll be too late. Tell Rodar and the others to prepare the army to march. The legions will be joining us.
What makes you think that?
I'm going to go fetch them right now. She turned to Mandaralin, who had just emerged from the tent. Where have you been? She asked. Come along, I need an escort. Where are we going, pray? The knight asked. You'll see, she told him, and she turned to her mount and rode at a trot up the hillside toward the massed legions. Mandaralin exchanged a helpless look with Barak, and then clanged into his saddle to follow. Sinedra, riding ahead, carefully put her fingertips to her amulet. Lady Polgara, she whispered, can you hear me? She wasn't certain that the amulet would work that way, but she had to try. Lady Polgara, she whispered again, a bit more urgently. What are you doing, Sinedra? Polgara's voice sounded quite clearly in the little queen's ears. I'm going to talk to the legions, Sinedra answered. Can you fix it so they'll hear me? Yes, but the legions won't be much interested in a speech about patriotism. I've got a different one, Sinedra assured her.
Your father's having a fit in here. He's actually foaming at the mouth. Sinedra sighed regretfully. I know, she said. It happens fairly often. Lord Morin has the medicine with him. Please try to keep him from biting his tongue. You goaded him into this deliberately, didn't you, Sinedra? I needed time to talk to the legions, the princess replied. The fit won't really hurt him very much. He's had fits all his life. He'll have a nosebleed and a terrible headache when it's over. Please take care of him, Lady Polgara. I do love him, you know. I'll see what I can do, but you and I are going to have a long talk about this, young lady. There are some things you just don't do. I didn't have any choice, Lady Polgara. This is Forgarian. Please, do what you have to do so that the legions can hear me. It's awfully important. All right, Sinedra, but don't do anything foolish. Then the voice was gone. Sinedra quickly scanned the standards drawn up before her, selected the familiar emblem of the 83rd Legion, and rode toward it. It was necessary that she place herself in front of men who would recognize her and confirm her identity to the rest of her father's army. The 83rd was primarily a ceremonial unit, and by tradition its barracks were inside the imperial compound at Tol Honeth. It was a select group, still limited to the traditional 1,000 men, and it served primarily as a palace guard. Sinedra knew every man in the 83rd by sight, and most of them by name. Confidently, she approached them. 1,000 people, and she knows them all by name. It's impressive. Colonel Albor, she courteously greeted the commander of the 83rd, a stout man with a florid face and a touch of gray at his temples. Your Highness, the colonel replied with a respectful inclination of his head. We've missed you at the palace. Sinedra knew that to be a lie. The duty of guarding her person had been one of the common stakes in barracks dice games, with the honor always going to the loser. I need a small favor, Colonel, she said to him as winsomely as she could. If it's in my power, Highness, he answered, hedging a bit. I wish to address my father's legions, she explained, and I want them to know who I am. She smiled at him, warmly, insincerely. Albor was a whorebite, and Sinedra privately detested him. And what are you doing? What are you doing? Since the 83rd practically raised me, she continued, you of all people should recognize me and be able to identify me. That's true, Your Highness, Albor admitted. Do you suppose you could send runners to the other legions to inform them just who I am? At once, Your Highness, Albor agreed. He obviously saw nothing dangerous in her request. For a moment, Sinedra almost felt sorry for him. The runners, trotters actually, since members of the 83rd were not very athletic, began to circulate through the massed legions. Sinedra chatted the while with Colonel Albor and his officers, though she kept a watchful eye on the tent where her father was recuperating from his seizure, and also on the gold-colored canopy beneath which the Tolnadran General Staff was assembled. The 83rd are on desk duty. She definitely did not want some curious officer riding over to ask what she was doing.
Finally, when she judged that any further delay might be dangerous, she politely excused herself. She turned her horse, and, with Manderalin close behind her, she rode back out to a spot where she was certain she could be seen. "Sound your horn, Manderalin," she told her knight.
"We are some distance from our own forces, your majesty," he reminded her. "I pray thee, be moderate in thine address. Even I might experience some difficulty in facing the massed legions of Altonedra."
Well, that's new.
She smiled at him.
"You know you can trust me, Manderalin."
"With my life, your majesty,"
he replied, and lifted his horn to his lips. As the last ringing notes faded, Sinedra, her stomach churning with the now familiar nausea, rose in her stirrups to speak. "Legionnaires," she called to them, "I am Princess Sinedra, the daughter of your emperor." It wasn't perhaps the best beginning in the world, but she had to start somewhere, and this was going to be something in the nature of a performance rather than an oration, so a bit of awkwardness in places wouldn't hurt anything. "I have come to set your minds at rest," she continued. "The army massed before you comes in peace. This fair, green field, this sacred Tolnedran soil, shall not be a battleground this day. For today, at least, no legionnaire will shed his blood in defense of the Empire." A ripple of relief passed through the massed legions. No matter how professional soldiers might be, an avoided battle was always good news. Sinedra drew in a deep, quivering breath. It needed just a little twist now. Something to lead logically to what she really wanted to say. "Today you will not be called upon to die for your brass half-crown." The brass half-crown was the Legionnaire's standard daily pay. "I cannot, however, speak for tomorrow," she went on. "No one can say when the affairs of empire will demand that you lay down your lives. It may be tomorrow that the interests of some powerful merchant may need legion blood for protection." She lifted her hands in a rueful little gesture. "But then, that's the way it's always been, hasn't it? The legions die for brass so that others might have gold." A cynical laugh of agreement greeted that remark. Sinedra had heard enough of the idle talk of her father's soldiers to know that this complaint was at the core of every legionnaire's view of the world. Blood and gold, our blood and their gold, was very nearly a legion motto. They were almost with her now. The quivering in her stomach subsided a bit, and her voice became stronger. She told them a story then. Puppy knows how to get comfortable. I guess I'll switch to this side. Getting ready for story time. It's not going to be easy for me to see chat from here. She told them a story then. A story she'd heard in a half-dozen versions since her childhood. It was the story of a good legionnaire who... Oh, I'm blocking him. Here we go. A good legionnaire who did his duty and saved his money. His wife had suffered through the hardships and separations that went with being married to a legionnaire. when he was mustered out of his legion, they had gone home and bought a little shop, and all the years of sacrifice seemed worthwhile. And then, one day, his wife became very ill. Sinedra continued her story. And the physician's fee was very high. Very, very. She had been carefully untying the sack fastened to her saddle while she spoke. The physician demanded this much, she said, taking 3 blood-red Murgo coins from the sack and holding them up for all to see. And the Legionnaire went to a powerful merchant and borrowed the money to pay the physician. But the physician, like most of them, was a fraud, and the Legionnaire's money might as well have been thrown away. Quite casually, Sinedra tossed the gold coins into the high grass behind her. The soldier's good and faithful wife died, and when the Legionnaire was bowed down with grief, the powerful merchant came to him and said, "Where's the money I lent to you?" She took out 3 more coins and held them up. "Where's that good red gold I gave you to pay the physician?" But the Legionnaire had no gold. His hands were empty. Sinedra spread her fingers, letting the gold coins fall to the ground. And so the merchant took the Legionnaire's shop to pay the debt. A rich man grew richer. And what happened to the Legionnaire? Well, he still had his sword. He had been a good soldier. So he kept it bright and sharp. And after his wife's funeral, he took his sword and went out into a field not far from the town, and he fell upon it. And that's how the story ends. She had them now. She could see it in their faces. The story she had told them had been around for a long time, but the gold coins she had so casually tossed away gave it an entirely new emphasis. She took out several of the Angarak coins and looked at them curiously, as if seeing them for the first time. "Why do you suppose that all the gold we see these days is red?" she asked them. "I always thought gold was supposed to be yellow. Where does all this red gold come from?"
"From Cthul Murgos,"
several of them answered her. "Really?" She looked at the coins with an apparent distaste. "What's Murgo gold doing in Tolnedra?" And she threw the coins away. The iron discipline of the legions wavered, and they all took an involuntary step forward. "Of course, I don't suppose an ordinary soldier sees much red gold. Why should a Murgo try to bribe a common soldier when he can bribe the officers, or the powerful men who decide where and when the legions are to go to bleed and die?" Am I shifting back, Ben? She took out another coin and looked at it. "Do you know, I think that every single one of these is from Cthul Murgos," she said, negligently throwing the coin away. "Do you suppose that the Murgos are trying to buy up Tolnedra?" There was an angry mutter at that. "There must be a great deal of this red gold lying about in the Angarak kingdoms, if that's what they have in mind, wouldn't you say? I've heard stories about that, though. Don't they say that the mines of Thol Murgos are bottomless, and that there are rivers in Garog Nadrak that look like streams of blood because the gravel over which they flow is pure gold? Why, gold must be as cheap as dirt in the lands of the East." She took out another coin, glanced at it, and then tossed it away. The legions took another involuntary step forward. The officers barked the command to stand fast, but they also looked hungrily toward the tall grass where the princess had been so indifferently throwing the red gold coins. It may be that the army I'm leading will be able to find out just how much gold lies on the ground in the lands of the Angarax, Sinedra confided to them. The Murgos and the Grolims have been practicing this same kind of deceit in Erendia and Sendaria and the Alorn kingdoms. We are on our way to chastise them for it. She stopped, as if an idea had just occurred to her. There's always room in any army for a few more good soldiers, she mused thoughtfully. I know that most legionnaires serve out of loyalty to their legions and love for Tolnedra. But there may be a few among you who aren't satisfied with one brass half-crown a day. I'm sure such men would be welcome in my army. She took another red coin out of her dwindling supply. Would you believe that there's another Murgo gold piece? She demanded, and let the coin drop from her fingers. A sound went through the massed legions that was almost a groan. The princess sighed then. I forgot something, she said regretfully. My army's leaving at once, and it takes weeks for a legionnaire to arrange for leave, doesn't it?
Who needs leave?
Someone shouted. You wouldn't actually desert your legions, would you? She asked them incredulously.
The princess offers gold,
Another man roared.
Let Ran Borune keep his brass.
Sinedra dipped one last time into the bag and took out the last few coins. Would you actually follow me? She asked in her most little girl voice. Just for this? And she let the coins trickle out of her hand. The Emperor's general staff at that point made a fatal mistake. They dispatched a platoon of cavalry to take the princess into custody. Seeing mounted men riding toward the ground Sinedra had so liberally strewn with gold, and mistaking their intent, the legions broke. Officers were swarmed under and trampled as Ran Borune's army lunged forward to scramble in the grass for the coins.
I pray thee, your majesty, Mandaralin urged, drawing his sword. Let us withdraw to safety.
In a moment, Sir Mandaralin, Sinedra replied quite calmly. She stared directly at the desperately greedy legionnaires running toward her. My army marches immediately, she announced. If the Imperial legions wish to join us, I welcome them. It's the drunk guy again. And with that, she wheeled her horse and galloped back toward her own forces, with Mandaralin at her side. Behind her, she heard the heavy tread of thousands of feet. Someone among the massed legions began a chant that soon spread.
Sinedra! Sinedra!
They shouted, and their heavy steps marked time to that chant. The Princess Sinedra, her sun-touched hair streaming in the wind behind her, galloped on, leading the mass mutiny of the legions. Even as she rode, Sinedra knew that her every word had been a deception. There would be no more wealth for these legionnaires than there would be glory or easy victory for the errands she had gathered from the forests of Asturia and the plains of Mimbre. She had raised an army to lead into a hopeless war. It was for love of Geryon, however, and perhaps for even more. If the prophecy that so controlled their destinies demanded this of her, there was no way she could have refused. Despite all the anguish that lay ahead, she would have done this and more. For the first time, Sinedra accepted the fact that she no longer controlled her own destiny. Something infinitely more powerful than she commanded her, and she must obey. Polgara and Belgarath, with lives spanning eons, could perhaps devote themselves to an idea, a concept. But Sinedra was barely 16 years old, and she needed something more human to arouse her devotion. At this very moment, somewhere in the forests of Gar Og Nadrak, there was a sandy-haired young man with a serious face whose safety, whose very life, depended on every effort she could muster. The princess surrendered finally to love. She swore to herself that she would never fail her Garion. If this army were not enough, she would raise another, at whatever cost. Sinedra sighed, then squared her shoulders and led the Tolnedran legions across the sunny fields to swell the ranks of her army. Weird, because it's all in one book. I don't have the, this is where this book ends, and the next book will see blah, 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 and Garion confront his destiny, blah, blah. Brilliant. Did you enjoy her recruitment of the Tolnedrans? She just bought them with gold. Which, from everything we've ever heard of the Tolnedrans, that's just what you do. Look at that puppy. There's gold in them there hills. The rivers run like blood because the gravel is just gold. It is interesting, the red gold. It's such a, it's just so odd that, yeah, gold's supposed to be yellow. Why is it red? Literally like blood money. Does it have, every other property that gold normally has, and just the only difference is that it's red? Here ends Book 4 of the Belgariad. Book 5, Enchanter's Endgame, brings this epic to... I see, that's why you said brilliant. To a brilliant conclusion as Belgarion confronts evil Torak to decide the fate of men, gods, and prophecies. So we're going to have to figure out what's next. We've got one book left in the Belgariad. We are reaching the end. Complete with an Oxford comma. Maybe it has a very small iron impurity. Because of all the blood. Oh boy. But we don't need to figure out what to read next tonight. That can wait until Wednesday. We have another house showing on Sunday. And the one we had today was a group that had been here last weekend. So this was their second visit. They came during our open house, and then they booked an appointment to come look at it again. So that's, hopefully good. She was very smart, not actual promise the Angrat gold. Just pondering if there's lots of it and letting them imagine the rest. Yeah. Yeah, she didn't even promise to pay them. She didn't really promise them anything, except that they were going to, to Angarek land. Alright, well, I'm a bit sleepy. So, I hope that everyone has a very nice rest of your evening. and a good weekend. Careful if you're gotta go anywhere this weekend because it could be quite snowy. I'm not sure how much snow we're supposed to get. If there's not too much, then we might have to go out to Chilliwack on Sunday. But if there is, then we'll probably be staying home. Although we do have another house showing on Sunday, so we'll have to get out of the house at least for that. Yeah, but otherwise, I should be here next Wednesday, which will be, it will be the 1st of the month. We're going into March. Wow, it's almost March already. Less than a week until March. March. Oh, you won't be here on Wednesday. Okay, yeah, no problem. Honestly, in that case, I'll probably just skip Wednesday entirely, which is okay with me. You're going to a concert? What concert? What concert? What concert? What are you going to? Is it Weird Al? Flaming Lips. Ooh, that's fun. What's your favorite song? January 2020, yeah. I know how that is. We were supposed to be going to Japan in 2020. And we're going to be going this May. Getting real close to that. I got to start taking some, got to start doing some studying. Bone up on the language just a little. Enough to be polite, right? All right, well, I hope you have a great time. I hope it's really good. But yeah, hopefully you can just enjoy the snow this weekend if it happens and not, have to trudge in it too much or drive in it too much. And yeah, then hopefully I'll see you on Friday. So have a good week. Think about what we want to read next. Upwards of a foot. Oh boy. If that's the case, I'm definitely not going out to Chilliwack. Alright. Okay, well, good night, everybody. Have a good weekend. Enjoy your concert. And I'll see you in a week. Good night. Bye-bye.